My name is Penelope Miller-Smith, and I'm here to talk about my journey. I work for a military-connected school as an elementary school principal, but I'm also a military spouse of a U.S. Army chaplain. So, in fact, I've had quite a journey, and I have experienced PCS with my husband, but I've experienced PCS season myself. And I'm going to pick up my story a little bit in the middle and tell you more about my journey personally and my experiences with PCS season for myself and what I've learned over the years. As a military spouse, my husband PCS'd numerous times, but all of those times we were geographically separated. We decided at the time he went into the military as a second career, which is typical for a chaplain, that it was best that I stay put in Michigan, where I had a career as a school administrator in a district there. And so every PCS season for my husband, I would help pack him up and figure out what he was taking from one place to the next or find new things that he needed. But I never truly understood what it was like to get up and move permanently. And I didn't know what it was like to have to reintegrate into a new community. But in 2009, my husband PCS'd to Germany. And at that time, we decided that I really wanted to figure out a way to join him overseas. And so over the course of the next year, I worked on finding an opportunity for myself. And in 2010, I became an elementary building principal of a military-connected school in Germany. I was about 4.5 hours away from my husband, but it was close enough for me to take the train on the weekends, and we could enjoy spending time with each other on holidays and extended weekends. And so for the first time, I had to pack up my home in Michigan, sell a bunch of stuff, wasn't really sure what I needed overseas, and move to a new country. Now, this was my first experience, and so with the first experience, everything was new and exciting, and I didn't really think about what I was giving up. I had friends that were going to come visit because I lived in this new exotic location. I had this wonderful new job, and everything was new and exciting. So my first experience was a very positive one. I loved looking for a new house. I loved getting new furniture. I loved figuring out where everything was in town and establishing those new relationships with my favorite stores and my favorite restaurants, and getting to have new friends and make new connections. I was there at my first school, and I PCS'd again to a new school, but it was only about an hour down the street. And it was actually a door-to-door move, so they picked up all my stuff in the morning and dropped it all off in the evening. Now, I can't say that the move itself was simple, because people never pack your stuff the way you would pack it. And I think it was about 6 months later that I found out that my toolbox that I thought went missing was actually in the container where the charcoal briquettes were supposed to be. So when I decided to have a barbecue that summer, or the following summer actually, I found all my tools and the charcoal briquettes. So I learned a few things of what not to do when it came to packers coming into my home. But again, the move was relatively simple, because my friends that I got to go visit on the weekend. They were just an hour away. My favorite place where I got my car washed, I drove down there once a month and got my car washed. So all the things that I loved and the people that I had grown accustomed to being around, they were still there. Of course, I was at a new school and I had to establish new relationships. And even though for a while I was comfortable driving an hour to get my hair cut, I actually learned that in fact I had to find some new places. But it wasn't until I moved to where I am now in Bahrain that I really experienced what truly it meant to have a permanent change of station. My journey here was one that was unexpected. And while many times we think about that we know, oh, I'm in the Army, I'm gonna move every 3 years, or I'm in the Navy and I'm gonna move every 2 years. And we can kind of plan and anticipate what's coming next. For me, the opportunity, the offer, and my acceptance all happened in about 3 days. I wasn't planning to go anywhere, and now I was literally moving somewhere completely different. So I had to deal with unexpected change that I wasn't expecting to have to go through, and do it relatively quickly. I learned also that for the first time, I was now going to be leaving a set of friends and the comfort of my previous location in Germany. And it was going to be really different. I had to establish new friends. I had to establish new relationships. The friends that I had may or may not come to visit the Middle East. And that most of the time my relationships were now going to be through Facebook or video calls and things like that, because they had jobs and they had responsibilities and they had places that they wanted to visit and travel. And I also had to learn a completely new culture all over again. And while German culture was definitely different and I embraced it, I had been there for almost 10 years. And so it became second nature to me, but I had to start all over, and 10 years is a long time. I started to learn that I not only felt different in every one of my PCS situations. There was nothing that was the same with each one of them, except that I was moving and there were packers that were gonna come to the house and take everything, and I'd be lucky if I saw it in about 3 months. So I had to figure out what I was going to do to live out of a suitcase in a hotel room. My experience every single time was different. There were different variables that were going on. The fact that I left unexpectedly and I didn't have time to really say some goodbyes that I wanted to have, that was a loss. The fact that I was going somewhere new and I was really excited about going there, that was great and I loved it. But there were also things that now all of a sudden, that's not the way they do it here. It wasn't the way they did it in Germany, and it's not the way they did it in the United States. And so I need to learn new ways. I had to learn new customs, new social behaviors, new ways to get along with my community. I had to find totally different places to shop. And in fact, I found that some stuff I was just not gonna get. They weren't gonna have that. And so now that was gone from my life. I could get a friend to mail it to me, but at some point you can only be a burden on your friends so many times. Every time that I've had to PCS, or every time I've helped my husband PCS, I've learned that I handle it differently. I have different emotions and different feelings, and I can't expect that I'm going to feel and act the same way because the situation is different. So I've had to learn to be adaptable. I've had to learn to be flexible. I've had to look at the opportunities, and I've had to be thankful for the experiences that I've had and that I'm putting that chapter to bed and I'm starting a new chapter. One of the saddest things that I oftentimes see and hear from families that come into my school is they'll come in brand new into the community and they're exacerbated, they're tired, they're frustrated, they're angry. They didn't want to move to the new location. This wasn't their pick, it wasn't their choice, and so they came begrudgingly. They're unhappy. And that feeling just permeates all aspects of their life. They wind up being unhappy. And being unhappy for 2 or 3 years is definitely not the way to live. You miss out on the experiences of the here and now. If I had come into any of the places that I've lived, not wanting to be there, being upset, or kind of miffed that something went wrong or something got broken, I would have missed out on an opportunity. I often hear those same people 2 or 3 years later, ecstatic that they're finally leaving. And I think to myself, but you missed it. You missed an opportunity. PCSing definitely has its problems and shortcomings, but it has the beauty of new and adventure and excitement and growth, opportunities to gain something that you probably would have never otherwise had. I am so lucky because of the journey that I've had and the experiences that have molded and shaped me. They've made me be creative. They've made me be willing to see from different perspectives, to recognize there's just not one outcome to every situation, and that I can, in fact, be resilient. But most important, I've learned that permanent change of station isn't permanent. Really, nothing's permanent. I need to be flexible and adaptable so that I can enjoy the time that I have. I love living in Bahrain, but I know it won't be forever. So I'm going to enjoy every moment that I have right now, because in the most parts of the world, I can't sit down with my friends and enjoy a wonderful cup of Karak tea and just relax and talk. And I learned how to recycle from the best of them in Germany. So each of my experiences have shaped and molded me and made me the person that I am. And I hope that when you have to move and you have to transition somewhere new, that you'll see it as, yes, it's a time to say goodbye, and it's filled with sadness and sorrow, but it's filled with opportunity and new horizons that you probably might not ever see again. So take a hold and enjoy them, because the journey is about the joy that comes with something new.